My name is David. I'm a Singaporean by descent. I was born overseas, but one of my parents is a Singaporean. I had studied overseas for several years before coming to Singapore. Do you know that minor Singapore citizens must take the oath of allegiance when they reach 21 years of age? They must also divest themselves of any foreign citizenship. I have some time to go before I need to take the oath. But like any other person, I want to know, what makes someone want to be a Singaporean? What will make someone want to stay in Singapore?
Hi everyone, my name is Mr. Pan, or first name is Pradana. I am actually an Indonesian-born Singaporean. I was born in Indonesia, Jakarta to be exact. So I moved here when I was 14. One of the strongest reasons for my moving here was actually the racial riots back in 1998. So my family had to move from our hometown to a safer place, and because I happened to have an uncle who worked in Singapore, he actually asked if I would consider continue my education here. So I've been living here since 2003. I became a Singaporean in 2011 after my national service because I finally decided that this is the place that I want to spend at least a good part of my life in, as well as the place that I want to grow up and grow old as well. I think the strongest reason would be the fact that we embrace meritocracy here. So regardless of your creed or your race or religion, we are all given equal opportunities to succeed, and I think I really appreciate that about the place, about Singapore at least. So when I had the opportunity to serve in national service after my graduation from junior college, I thought it would be a good opportunity to really see and contribute back to the society that I found to be very embracing of me, because I came here as a foreign student when I was 14, and never once I actually felt I was any different, because as long as I worked hard, I knew that I will be credited for the work that I put in. So I think I just find that there is no better reason to serve a country that has given you so much. I think it is the peace and stability that we often take for granted. We don't say it or think about it a lot, but I came from a place where we've had racial riots, for example, in Indonesia. So I knew what it must have felt to be a minority, what it must have felt to be different from the rest of the countrymen. So I think that's the one thing that I really like about Singapore, the fact that I'm see myself first as a Singaporean, and then perhaps my race, but not the other way around. So that's always that bond that makes us all the same, no matter what we do, wherever we come from.
My name is Leng Leng, so I'm Singaporean, pure local breed. Well, I decided to leave Singapore a few years ago because I was thinking to have an experience overseas. And you know, that time when you're young, you actually want to experience a different kind of adventure. You want to see things for yourself. What's the world outside? Being overseas, of course, I feel proud being a Singaporean, because in Japan, people, when they mention about Singapore, they will think about, wow, we are very like a booming economy. We have a very good government. So they kind of envy us, and I really feel proud being a Singaporean. The experience in Japan is very different, because in Singapore it's very multiracial, multicultural. People are much more, I think, receptive to other people's culture. In Japan, I do feel that there is a difference between us and them. I feel it's so difficult to break through the wall to integrate into the society. You have to know the language, you have to know the culture, and it's not easy to integrate into the society. Over here, I feel like it's very much like home because of the language, the people here, and I grew up here, I go through the system here, so I feel very much comfortable. So, of course, in Japan, the experience is it's really good, but I feel like I'm just like a minority. I don't have a voice. Over here, I find that I'm able to contribute. My voice is being heard. I could make a change. So that is the difference I feel. Here, everything seems quite safe. It's very safe here. in Japan, you sometimes have to live in a constant fear that you don't know when natural catastrophe is going to come. Like when before I come back, there was this March 11 earthquake. It was really very scary because I was alone and I do not know where to get help. But here I have my family and my friends I could rely on. So this is something very different. And here I feel such a safe and secure environment for me. I feel that my root is here, and I feel it's very nice to be home again. I think gain the experience because you look at things from a different perspective. You also learn about the culture from other people, the other countries, and it gives you much a more holistic kind of perspective because you don't think you don't think about yourself. You also think about other people's point of view. So that is something that I would encourage SST students to go and experience what is the world outside, but bring it back and contribute to Singapore.
Hi, my name is Rachel Yao. I'm currently teaching chemistry in School of Science and Technology. I first came to Singapore to study in university. I went to NUS. It was really the greatest time of my life. And I decided to stay on in Singapore to serve as a teacher. And that's quite not a very common thing to do, to come as a foreigner to work in the civil service. But I enjoy every minute of it, and I'm glad I can contribute to this country. And I think that's because I really identify with Singapore as home, more so than my home country, which is Malaysia, by the way. So although I'm here alone with a few family members, but I really think of this place as home because of the social stability, the economic stability, which is definitely the reason why I stayed on. I lived in Germany for a very short period of time, maybe slightly less than a year, but there was an option for my family to move to Europe, but eventually I decided to come to Singapore alone because firstly, the physical and geographical proximity to home, and eventually I am Asian. I feel that I can blend into this society very well. I can pick up Singlish very easily and they can understand me. And so one of the strongest reasons why I decided to come here was because I felt that whatever I made here in terms of money would really help my family back at home. But besides helping my family, I feel that I'm also building something here, a career. And even though I do feel like I would love to venture overseas and look at different countries, work overseas while I'm still young, but I feel that eventually I'd still come back to Singapore because it's close to my family. My friends are here and I can identify with this place. I feel at home. I feel that it's peaceful here. I can walk out in the streets in the middle of the night. I feel safe, and I'm really enjoying the economic and financial, the political stability. Appreciate your time in Singapore. Appreciate what there is over here that unfortunately there isn't in your home country. But at the same time, bring all these goodness back to your family and remember to contribute to this place because it is your home, no matter how temporarily so.
I'm Mrs. Linda Chan. I spent 4 years doing my undergrad degree in New Zealand. New Zealand was a beautiful place. In fact, the environment was very nice. But at the end of it, I feel that I have to come back because Singapore is still where my family, my friends are. So that is one of the key driving force. But perhaps to share also another aspect, while I was in New Zealand, spending my studies there were 3 runs where the transport were on strike. What that means is that there will be no bus services, there will be no transport services. And I was staying like 20 minutes by bus away from my uni, and that was the year where the strike was on. It was winter, and imagine there was absolutely no buses, and the only way for me to get to uni is to walk. So I spend about an hour plus to walk one way to uni in the morning in the winter, cold morning, and then had to get back home, walk another hour in the cold, dark evening. And at that point, you think about it in Singapore. Do we have such an issue? I don't think so. Generally, when people have unhappiness at work, as in that case, there are other platforms for them to voice their concern, and there will be different parties coming in together to discuss the issue to come to a resolution, rather than go through strike. And that type of efficient system is not a system that you can get in many places. And after going through the strike, did they resolve the issue? Unfortunately, no. And that accounts for why I had to go through about 3 strikes in the few years that I was there. So that made me appreciate Singapore even more. It's corrupt-free, and that it is a safe place. I think nowhere else you can be where you can walk down the streets as a female at night. Now, of course, we always say low crime doesn't mean no crime, but I have to say in general we feel safe, and that we have the option to go by public transport alone without having to fear for your life. So that's one key thing. In many countries, there are people who get their way, not because of their effort, but because there is something that happened under the table. And in Singapore, we respect everybody's ability. As long as you put in the effort, you can get where you are, simply because as a system, we are a corrupt-free nation.